They told me mirrors are harmless, just polished glass, nothing more. But last week, I watched my own reflection walk past my apartment window. And I wasn't anywhere near the glass. It started quietly. No one noticed at first. A bathroom mirror, cracked in one building. An antique shop closed suddenly, claiming their inventory had been misplaced. But within days, an unease settled over our little city of Brenton. People began waking up to bare walls where their mirrors had been the night before. No shattered glass, no sign of forced entry, just gone. My neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove, was the first to sound the alarm. She was one of those old women who lived alone and saw everything that happened on our street. She knocked on my door early one morning, clutching her robe tight. Her hands were shaking. "They took my dresser mirror," she whispered, as if someone might hear her. But that's not the worst part. I saw myself outside, across the street, just standing there. I laughed it off. Sleepwalking, maybe, a dream. But she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. I watched her smile at me, but it wasn't my smile. That day, more reports trickled in. The gas station bathroom mirror vanished overnight. The barbershop had nothing but a gaping rectangle where their big front mirror had hung for 30 years. And a man swore that while driving to work, he saw his reflection in a puddle leaning in, grinning while his actual body sat frozen in his car. By the third night, it was everywhere. Any mirror left in the open vanished before dawn. People began locking them in closets, covering them with sheets. Some even smashed them on purpose, terrified of what might crawl through next. I still thought it was a bizarre prank, some kind of coordinated vandalism, until it happened to me. It was 2:14 in the morning. I remember the time because I checked the clock, annoyed at the noise coming from my bathroom. A faint scratching, like fingernails on glass. My bathroom mirror was a cheap rectangle, bolted to the wall above the sink. I turned on the light and froze. My reflection wasn't copying me. I stood still. It leaned closer. My breathing quickened. It tilted its head in a slow, unnatural way, as if testing how far it could bend without snapping its neck. Then its lips pulled back in a grin, so wide the skin around its mouth split into fine cracks. I stumbled backward, knocking over the trash can. And then, just like that, the mirror was gone. The wall was bare, dust outlines showing where it had once hung. That should have been the worst part, but it wasn't. The worst part came the next morning. I was walking to the corner store when I saw her, me, standing across the street in the crowd. She wasn't moving, just watching me. Her head tilted the same way as in the bathroom. I blinked, and she was gone. Panic spread through Brenton like wildfire. People stopped looking into reflective surfaces entirely. Storefront windows were boarded up. Even car windshields were covered when parked. It was as if we decided reflections were no longer a natural part of life, but an open door we couldn't close. Then the disappearances began. It started with a teenager named Cole. His mother claimed he'd been acting strange 4 days, speaking less, staring into dark corners. One night, she found him standing in front of the empty wall where their living room mirror used to hang. His lips moved soundlessly, as if he were whispering to someone. When she touched his shoulder, he turned, and his eyes were entirely black. She screamed, and the lights flickered. When they came back, he was gone. No sign of a break-in. No footprints in the fresh snow outside. The police treated it like a runaway case, but everyone in the neighborhood knew better. The night Cole disappeared, several people reported seeing him, or something wearing his shape, lingering near the abandoned warehouse on Darrow Street. And then there was the sound. It began softly, a faint hum, low enough to mistake for an appliance running. But it grew. Some swore it was a voice, too deep to understand, speaking from nowhere. It followed people, especially at night, making their skin crawl and their thoughts scatter. I tried to tell myself it was paranoia. That's what fear does, it turns shadows into monsters. But fear has a way of sharpening certain truths, and one night I saw something I can never unsee. I was on my way home, taking the shortcut past the shuttered movie theater. The glass in the doors had been smashed out weeks earlier. But as I passed, I saw movement in one of the jagged panes. A face, mine, only the skin was stretched to tight over the bones, and the eyes were hungry. I didn't move. My reflection did. It pressed its hands against the inside of the glass, mouth opening like it was about to scream. Then, in a blink, it was gone. I ran. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't random. The mirrors weren't just disappearing. They were being taken somewhere. And whatever was behind them was coming through. The next day, the mayor declared a city with mirror purge. Every remaining reflective surface was to be destroyed. People cheered, desperate for control. Crowds gathered in parking lots, smashing mirrors, glass tables, anything that could hold an image. I joined in, swinging a hammer until my arms ached. But in the back of my mind, a thought gnawed at me. If the mirrors are gone, where are they now? And what's looking back at us in their place? That night, I got my answer. I woke to the sound of rain. My bedroom window was streaked with water, the glass reflecting the dim glow of the streetlight. But in that reflection, there was someone else. She looked exactly like me, but her skin was grey and wet, her hair plastered to her skull. She stood just behind my shoulder in the reflection. Slowly, her lips moved. "You're next." I spun around. The room was empty. When I turned back, the reflection was gone, but a single wet handprint smeared the inside of the glass. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The following week blurred together in a haze of fear. More people vanished. Entire families locked themselves indoors. No one dared look too long at anything shiny, but the reflections had found other ways in puddles, polished metal, even human eyes, and then they began speaking. The first recorded incident was at the corner of 8th and Morgan. A man dropped his keys into a puddle. When he bent to pick them up, his reflection in the water whispered his name. Several witnesses swore they heard it too. The city tried to keep the news contained, but you can't hide something like this, not when the reflections started calling people by their deepest secrets. Not when they began asking, "Do you remember what you looked like before you were born? Do you ever wonder what you'll look like when you die?" They weren't just reflections anymore. They were invitations, and some people started answering. Some people said it started as dreams. They'd wake up drenched in sweat, certain they'd been speaking to someone all night, someone who looked exactly like them. Others claimed they'd simply slipped, like stepping off a curb they hadn't noticed, and when they came to, hours or days had passed. But the strangest were those who described a place, not in great detail, because every time they tried to explain it, their voice would catch and their eyes would unfocus, like they were watching something just behind you. They called it the glass field, endless ground made of black reflective stone, stretching forever in all directions. Above it, a sky that looked like it had been painted on and then scraped away, revealing only darkness beyond, and scattered across that surface, mirrors, thousands of them, each one a different size, different shape, some broken, some whole, all of them standing upright, without support. No one could say for sure if this place was real. But those who saw it swore that their other selves were there, wandering between the mirrors like restless animals, staring out at us. I tried not to think about it, tried to focus on work, groceries, the small rituals that made life feel normal. But normal doesn't survive long when you can't even trust your own shadow. One evening, as the last of the daylight faded, I was walking home past an alley when I heard a sound that froze me in place. A laugh, my laugh, light and sharp, the way it sounds when something catches me off guard. But it came from the dark. I should have kept walking. Instead, I turned at the far end of the alley, where the rainwater pooled. She was waiting. Me. Only, her eyes were wide and bloodshot, and her mouth moved in a silent rhythm. Her hands were submerged in the water, elbows deep, as though feeling around for something on the other side. When her gaze met mine, the air seemed to tighten around me. "Come see," she mouthed. I ran. That night, I locked every reflective thing I owned in a box and shoved it into the closet. But sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, standing in that glass field, smiling like she'd been waiting for me to arrive. The next morning, the news was everywhere. 30 people gone overnight. No sign of struggle. No signs at all. Just empty houses, unfinished meals, beds that still held the shape of their occupants. The mayor called for a curfew. Patrols were stationed at every major intersection. But how do you fight something that isn't really here? I found myself walking to the abandoned warehouse on Darrow Street. I don't know why. Maybe because I remembered what they said about coal. Maybe because I was tired of being afraid. The place smelled like rust and damp wood. Broken pallets were stacked in the corners, and the only light came from the cracks in the boarded windows. At first, I thought the floor was wet, but when I looked closer, I realized it was smooth, shiny, like black glass. And then I saw it, a mirror. Tall, cracked down the center, leaning against the far wall. My heart pounded as I approached. My reflection was there, but not alone. Standing just behind me in the glass was a crowd, dozens of figures, all slightly wrong. Skin to pale, eyes to wide, and in the center of them, her. The one from the alley. Her mouth moved again, slow and deliberate. This time I heard the words, "You've been here before." The glass rippled. Something cold brushed my hand. I stumbled backward, heart hammering, and the mirror fell forward, shattering into 100 pieces. For a second, I thought it was over, but then the shards began to tremble, each one holding a fragment of that other place, tiny windows into the glass field, each showing a different angle, a different figure moving closer. I ran without looking back. The next few days were worse. People stopped going to work. Schools shut down entirely. You could feel the city breathing faster, like a trapped animal. The hum was constant now, vibrating in the bones. And at night, the whispers grew louder. Some claimed they could bargain with the reflections, that if you gave them something, a secret, a piece of yourself, they'd leave you alone. But those who tried never lasted long. Their faces would start to fade, becoming dull and flat, like an image losing resolution. And then they'd vanish entirely. I kept thinking about the phrase she'd said to me, "You've been here before." It made no sense, until I remembered something from when I was a kid. My grandmother used to tell me to stare into mirrors at night. She said the longer you looked, the thinner the barrier became. I always thought it was just superstition, until I remembered the old full-length mirror she kept in her attic. One summer, when I was maybe 8 years old, I stood in front of it for what felt like hours. I remember seeing something move behind me, even though the room was empty. I ran downstairs crying, and she locked the attic for good. She died years ago. But what if that mirror was still there? 2 nights later, I drove out to her old house. It was empty now, paint peeling, the yard overgrown. Breaking in was too easy. The back door hung crooked on its hinges. The air inside was thick with dust and something else. Something that smelled like whetstone. I went straight to the attic. And there it was, covered with a moth-eaten sheet. When I pulled the cloth away, I nearly collapsed. The glass was perfect, too perfect. No dust, no scratches. As if it had been waiting for me. My reflection smiled before I did. This time, she spoke clearly. "It's time to come back." The attic seemed to tilt. My vision swam. And then, I was there. The glass field stretched around me, cold and endless. Mirrors stood like silent sentinels in every direction. Some showed empty rooms, others showed faces I didn't recognize, staring back with quiet hunger. She was beside me now, her hand cold and solid on my wrist. "You never left," she whispered. Behind us, the mirrors began to hum. And then I woke up in my bed. No idea how I got there. No idea if any of it was real. But when I looked at my closet, the box I'd locked all my reflective things in was gone. I didn't tell anyone about the attic. What could I say? That I'd stepped into some other world and come back without opening a door. That my reflection was alive and touching me. The words would sound insane, even to me, but the next morning proved it wasn't a dream. The box with my mirrors, my metal watch, even the stainless steel kettle from my kitchen, gone. I tore the apartment apart looking for them, but it was useless. Everything that could reflect an image had vanished. That evening, I got a call from my neighbor, Rick. He sounded out of breath, his voice shaking. "You need to see this," he said. Right now, I found him standing in the middle of his living room. His walls were bare, windows covered. But in the center of the floor was a puddle of water. It wasn't raining outside. The puddle was perfectly still, like glass. "Watch," Rick said. He stepped closer. His reflection appeared in the water, but it was wrong. It blinked too slow, moved half a second late. And then it grinned. Rick stumbled back. "It's been doing that all day. Every time I walk by. It's closer." We both froze when the reflection began mouthing something. I crouched, straining to read its lips. 3 words. "We found you." The water rippled. A pale hand broke the surface, reaching upward. I grabbed Rick and pulled him out of the room, slamming the door. The sound of dripping followed us down the hall. That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone's screen lit up on the nightstand. No call, no text, just the front camera opening by itself. And on the screen, my reflection leaned in until her eye filled the frame. "You're almost ready," she whispered. The phone went black. By morning, the city was on the brink. Entire streets were abandoned. Patrol officers stopped showing up. News anchors refused to go on air, claiming the cameras weren't safe. Then came the broadcast. Every channel, every radio station, the same voice. Low, smooth, and impossible to tell if it was male or female. "You've been missing from yourselves for so long. We've come to return you." The words vibrated in my chest. I turned off the TV, but the voice kept going, seeping from the walls. "We are not the other. We are the first. You are the ones who left." It was the first time they'd spoken to all of us. And it wasn't a threat, it was an accusation. I didn't understand it, not then. But the city changed after that. Some people stopped resisting. They stood in front of puddles, dark windows, shards of glass, whispering back to whatever was on the other side. Others barricaded themselves in basements, refusing to come out. I tried to avoid all of it. But the reflections had other plans. One afternoon, I was walking past an old laundromat. The windows were covered in plywood, but a crack in one board revealed a sliver of glass inside. I didn't mean to look, but I did. My reflection was standing in a room I didn't recognize. The walls were black, the air thick with a faint fog. Behind her, countless mirrors lined the walls. In each one, someone I knew. My grandmother, Mrs. Hargrove, Cole. They weren't screaming. They weren't moving. They just stood, eyes empty, like mannequins. She smiled and stepped aside. There was an empty mirror behind her. Waiting. I stumbled back into the street, nearly getting hit by a car. My pulse wouldn't slow down 4 hours. That night, I started hearing tapping on my walls. Light at first, like fingernails, then louder, heavier, until it sounded like fists pounding from inside the plaster. I called Rick, but he didn't answer. When I went to check on him, his apartment door was ajar. The place was empty. On his living room floor, the puddle was gone. In its place was a single shard of mirror, no bigger than my palm. My reflection was in it, smiling. "Almost," she whispered. I didn't take it with me. I didn't touch it, but as I walked home, Every dark window seemed to hum with the same word. Almost, almost, almost. It was wearing me down. I could feel something inside me leaning toward them. Like gravity. And then I saw her again. The one from the glass field, standing in the middle of the street under a flickering light. She wasn't smiling this time. You think you're the original, she said softly. But you're not. You're the echo. I froze. What are you talking about? She tilted her head, eyes shining like wet stone. We were here first. You stepped through long ago, into a weaker world. We've been waiting for you to come back. Before I could move, the light above us went out. And in that pitch black, I felt her hand wrap around mine. For a split second, the air was cold and thin, and I was standing on glass again. But when the light flickered back, I was alone. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new message, no number. Just a picture of me. Standing in the glass field. I deleted the photo. I told myself it was a trick, an edited image, anything but real. But the next morning, it was my phone's lock screen. No matter how many times I changed it, the picture came back. Everywhere I went, I caught glimpses of myself where I shouldn't be. Shop windows, dark car doors, puddles in the street after rain. Always standing still, always waiting. I stopped going out. Boarded up the windows, unplugged the TV. My apartment became a dim box of shadows. But it didn't matter. They found other ways in. At night, my dreams turned sharp and vivid. I'd wake with the taste of cold air in my mouth, my feet damp, my fingertips numb, and sometimes I'd find footprints on the floor. Bare, wet, leading away from my bed. One evening, the tapping came again. Not from the walls this time, but from inside the closet. Slow, patient. I stood frozen in the middle of the room, listening. The tapping stopped. Then, a voice. Do you want to see where you belong? It was my voice, but it didn't sound like me. The closet door creaked open. Inside, the mirror box was back. I swear I'd thrown it away weeks ago, but there it was, sitting neatly on the floor. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Only one object inside, a small, round hand mirror. The glass was black, no reflection at all. I should have smashed it. But I didn't. The moment my fingers touched it, the room was gone. I was standing in the glass field again, cold air biting at my skin. Mirrors stretched endlessly around me, and they weren't just holding people I knew anymore. They were holding everyone. Thousands, maybe millions, of faces pressed against the glass, eyes wide, mouths moving in silent rhythm. She appeared beside me, the same one who'd been following me from the start. Her voice was soft but inescapable. Do you see now? You've been walking in a copy, a thin world. Every mirror was a door back here. And you've been running from home. I shook my head. I'm not like you. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You already are. You just forgot which side you started on. The mirrors began to hum, the sound vibrating in my bones. One by one, they tilted toward me, their surfaces rippling like dark water. I stepped back, but there was nowhere to go. The ground under my feet was glass too, and in it, I saw my reflection, except she wasn't copying me anymore. She was reaching up from below, her hands breaking the surface. In an instant, she grabbed my ankles and pulled. Cold swallowed me. My lungs burned. My ears filled with the muffled sound of thousands of voices chanting in unison. Come back, come back, come back, I fought, clawing at the slick surface above, but it was like trying to climb through ice. My own face stared down at me, expressionless, watching me drown in the black. And then, I was in my apartment again, lying on the floor, gasping, the hand mirror shattered beside me. For a moment, I thought I'd escaped, but when I crawled to the window and caught my reflection in the glass, I knew it wasn't me looking back. Her smile was small and satisfied. She mouthed 3 words I'll never forget. You're the copy. Now I see her everywhere. In the kettle, the phone screen, the reflection in a stranger's sunglasses. She's not waiting anymore. She's wearing my life. And I'm the one on the other side of the glass dot. And if you're listening to this, maybe check the mirror behind you, just to make sure you're still the one on this side. Don't blink. Subscribe before they find you too.